Hello, my name is Joshua Mugabi. I welcome you to topic 10.1, Asexual Reproduction in Plants. We are looking at learning outcome B. Understand how plants reproduce asexually. Today we are going to look at this learning activity. Learners carry out a field study to observe plants, identifying possible parts that have been or could be used to get new plants of the same kind. Learners report findings in a table with drawings as appropriate. So that is the learning activity we are going to look at, identifying possible parts of the plants that can be used to get new plants of the same kind. Asexual reproduction in plants. Item 1. It is a field study work. A science teacher takes learner for a field study around the school compound and nearby gardens. Learners observe different plants such as cassava, sugarcane, sweet potatoes, bananas, pineapples, aloe vera, and hibiscus. Task: identify each plant observed. We have cassava, sweet potato, bananas, pineapple, sugarcane, ginger, and Irish potatoes. Identify the plant part. We are looking at the plant part used to produce new plants of the same kind. We want to identify the plant parts that are used to produce new plants of the same kind. When we look at cassava, the plant part is the stem cutting. Sweet potato, we can use the vines and the tubers. Bananas, the plant part used are the suckers. Pineapples, we use the suckers or we can also use the crown. Then we have sugarcane. Sugarcane, we use stem cuttings with nodes. Ginger, we use the rhizomes. Irish potato, we use tubers that have got eyes. State the type of asexual reproduction. Cassava, a piece of the stem grows into a new plant, identical to the parent plant. That is cassava. Sexual reproduction type is the stem cutting. Still on sweet potato. The sweet potato, the type of asexual reproduction, we are using tubers, whereby soaring roots store food and sprout into new shoot. You have your tuber here. It stores food and it will sprout into new shoots. Then we go to the bananas. The bananas, the type of sexual reproduction is vegetative propagation, which are the suckers. They are side shoots that grow from the base and develop into new banana plants. If you look at the major banana stem or the major banana plant, it has got what we are calling side shoots. These ones are the ones that grow from the base and develop into new banana plants. Then we have the pineapple. Type of asexual reproduction, we use the suckers. Still, it is vegetative propagation. You have what we are calling offshoots. They grow from the parent and they form a new plant. Now, if you look here, you will see this is the main plant, but it has got a side shoot here, this small one here. That side shoot there, here, is what we are calling the sucker. And it is the one which will detach off, break off, and then it can grow into a new plant. That is what we call a sucker. It is still vegetative propagation. Then we have the sugarcane. Sugarcane, asexual reproduction, we use stem cuttings. The stem cuttings have got nodes on the cane, and those nodes sprout roots and shoots to form new plants. So we have our sugarcane here. When we cut it into smaller pieces with nodes and internodes, there they have nodes which have got buds, and these buds are the ones that are going to sprout into a new plant. Then we have jinga. Jinga, the type of asexual reproduction, we use the rhizome divisions. This is the underground stems that grow horizontally and they produce new shoots. If you look at the rhizome growing here, it has got very many parts, nodes, internode, adventitious roots, scale leaves, but it has got a bud. They are growing horizontally underground. Now this bud is the one that is going to result into a new shoot. Then we have the Irish potato. Irish potato, asexual reproduction, we use tuber. A tuber has got buds, which we call eyes. On the tuber, they sprout and turn into new plants. Now, when you look at your Irish potato here, you will see that on the outside here, where there are scaly leaves, there are some eyes. You can see those eyes. Those eyes are the ones that are going to turn into a new plant. That is what we call asexual reproduction. Four, use the findings to explain how asexual reproduction occurs in the plants observed. Here we say that many plants can produce new individuals using vegetative parts such as stems, roots, tubers, suckers, and rhizomes, like the way we have seen them. All those plants have been using vegetative parts. We have looked at the stems, roots, tubers, suckers, and rhizomes. Now, these parts, they grow into new plants without seeds or fertilization, showing that the plant produces asexually, meaning that asexually there is no seeds, there is no fertilization, but we end up getting a new plant. All plants which are new, produced this way, they are genetically identical to the parent plant, meaning they have the same characteristics. That is what we call genetically identical. Genetically identical means that they are similar. They have the same genes. They are similar to their parents. There is no variation. They don't show any change from the parent. Therefore, the field findings support the definition of asexual reproduction as the formation of new plants from vegetative parts of a parent plant without gamete fusion. So, meaning asexual reproduction, we are forming a new plant from parts of the parent. We don't use gametes. There is no fusion of gametes. Asexual reproduction in plants, item 2. We are going to look at the field study still. At school, the agriculture teacher takes learners to the school garden. They observe crops such as cassava, sugarcane, sweet potatoes, bananas, matoke, onions, and various ornamental plants. Task: what is asexual reproduction? Asexual reproduction is a process by which a plant produces a new individual from its vegetative part. It can be a stem, it can be a root, a leaf, or bud, but without involving seeds or gametes. That is what we are calling asexual reproduction. A new plant is formed from an old plant using the vegetative parts, which can be stems, roots, leaf, buds, but not using seeds or gametes. List the types of vegetative propagation and examples of crops in Uganda propagated by each method. We have what we call natural vegetative propagation. And this one, we have plants using this type of propagation like strawberries, couch grass, ginger, yams, onions, garlic, Irish potatoes, arrowroots, bananas, and pineapples. Then we have another one which we call artificial vegetative propagation. Here we have crops like cassava, sugarcane, hibiscus, citrus, mangoes, apples, roses, strawberries, oranges, tangerine, banana, coffee, Irish potatoes. Give the methods of asexual reproduction, plant parts involved, and examples of crops. Asexual reproduction method, we are having the natural vegetative propagation. And here we are using runners or stolons. The plant parts involved are the stems running in the soil. And examples, we have the strawberries and couch grass. Here you can see this is a strawberry. It has an underground runner or stolon. That underground stolon, when it lands on the ground, and now it forms a new plant. These ones are what we are calling stolons. When they land on the ground, they sprout into a new plant and then develop roots underground. That is natural vegetative propagation from runners or stolons. Then we have the rhizomes. Rhizomes are also underground stems. And examples, we have the ginger and bananas. They are from underground stems, which we call the rhizome. They have buds which end up sprouting and growing into a new plant. Still under natural vegetative propagation, we have what we call the combs. The combs, these are swollen underground stems. And an example is the yam. So you have a comb here, underground swollen stem. It develops a bud and it grows into a new plant. Then we have the bulbs. Bulbs, these are fresh leaf bases. Example, we have the onions and the garlic. If you look at this one here, this is our bulb. It has got fresh leaves, but it has got buds inside, which will develop and grow into new plants. Then we have the tubers, asexual reproduction through tubers. These are swollen underground stems. Like, for example, Irish potato and arrowroots. These ones, they are swollen underground stems that have got eyes, which are going to develop sprout into buds, which will develop into new plants. Then we have the suckers. Suckers, these are lateral shoots, like the one you see on the bananas. The shoots that are growing on the sides, they end up detaching and developing into new plants. Examples of those ones, we have the bananas and the pineapples. Then we have what we are referring to as artificial vegetative propagation. Now, under artificial vegetative propagation, we have the stem cuttings. Stem cuttings, type of asexual reproduction, and a part of the plant is the stem section. Here we have plants like cassava, sugarcane, and hibiscus. Then still under artificial vegetative propagation, we have what we call grafting. In grafting, we have what we call a scion and a rootstock. A rootstock is got from a root. That part which has got roots, you cut it and you have a stem with the upper part cut off. That one becomes our rootstock. Then the scion, we get the plant which we want, which has got high yielding varieties. We bring that upper part of the plant, and that upper part of the plant, we are going now to tie it on this rootstock. And that one is what we call grafting. Like, for example, mangoes, we can get a mango which has got good yields. We get the shoot, which we call the scion. And then we get another local mango, which has got resistance to drought, resistant to diseases. We get the rootstock, and the two are combined together. That combination is what we call grafting. And plants that we can graft, we have citrus, mangoes, and apples. Then we have artificial vegetative active propagation still, there is that one which we call tissue culture. These are sterile laboratory shoots, and they can be got from banana, coffee, Irish potato. What do they do here? Here they get a piece of, for example, a banana comb. They take it in the laboratory and cut it in two very smaller pieces. When they cut it into smaller pieces, those smaller pieces, now each piece that has been cut from the comb will now sprout into a new plant. And that new plant is what we call tissue culture. We have got a new plant sprouting from one piece of comb, a smaller piece of comb, which has been cut into smaller pieces, and each piece turned into a smaller plantlet. That one is what we call tissue culture. And the plants that we can use tissue culture, we have bananas, we have coffee, we have Irish potatoes. Then we have what we call layering. Layering. This is whereby a bent stem forms roots, and then we get a new plant. This one can be done in roses and strawberries. What are we saying here? You have, like for example, strawberry here. There is a stem here. This stem, we bend it down here. And when you bend it on the ground, it will produce roots. When it produces roots, and then it will produce at that point a new plant. And that new plant now can be cut off from the rest and then planted alone. It becomes a new plant. That is what we call layering. We get the stem, turn it to the soil, peg it into the soil. That part pegged into the soil will produce roots, and then it will produce a new plant. Now this one can be cut off. When you cut it off from there, this one can become a new plant. And you can also cut it off from here, and this one becomes a new plant. That is what we call layering. Four, give the advantages of asexual reproduction. Advantages of asexual reproduction: 1. They produce genetically identical offspring, meaning that all the offsprings look like the parents. 2. The new plant retain desirable traits. Which traits? Like high yields, sweetness, or drought resistance. Meaning that if the parent plant had high yields, it had sweetness, and it was drought resistant, even this new plant is going to have high yield, it will have sweetness, and it will be drought resistant. Then also, they are faster than growing from seeds, meaning that we can get products very fast from them. They grow very fast compared from plants that are grown from seeds. They can reproduce plants that do not provide viable seeds. So if we have plants, like for example bananas, that do not provide us with the seeds, we can use parts of the plant, which is asexual reproduction, to produce a new plant. And this one also, they ensure uniformity in plantations, important for commercial farming. Meaning that when you are growing that particular plant, all the plants that you grow will be uniform. They will be of the same type. And that one is very important when you are carrying out commercial farming. Five, give disadvantages of asexual reproduction. Disadvantages: there is no genetic variation. And when there is no genetic variation, the entire crop is prone to pests and diseases. This one, what we are meaning is that if there is no variation, there is no difference, and these plants are attacked by pests and diseases which affect that type, then the whole plantation is going to be destroyed. And secondly, it requires skilled labor, part of it when we were seeing, for example, artificial propagation where we have grafting and budding. Those ones, they require people who have got skills to carry out grafting and budding. Then some methods are very expensive, like for example, tissue culture. These ones, the methods require us to take the material to the lab, and then they have to use a lot of technology. They have to use a lot of power, a lot of resources, a lot of skill is needed, so they become a little bit more expensive. And they are not suitable for mass production in all crops. They may not be suitable for producing very many plants. For example, if you are going to plant bananas, those vegetative parts are very bulky, so they require a lot of energy. Six, why farmers in Uganda prefer vegetative propagation for some crops? Vegetative propagation allows farmers to quickly multiply crops like bananas, like cassava, sweet potatoes, coffee, and citrus. Those can be multiplied very fast. That's why they are liked. How does this method support commercial agriculture? Produces uniform crops, characteristics needed for market standards. For example, if you are producing tomatoes and people want a specific type of tomatoes, so you have to bring those tomatoes that are similar. So this one is very important in commercial agriculture. And then they are faster maturity results in high and predictable yields. So when you have the same type of vegetative, for example, vegetative propagation, it is going to give you products that you can really predict, and you know this plant will give me this number of tomatoes, and it will give you high results. Then they also help to maintain elite varieties. We can use them to maintain, to keep that variety that is good yielding, that is favorable, that is sweet, can be maintained, because the plants that you are going to get, they are going to provide you with products that are the same throughout. Thank you for participating in the topic 10.11, asexual reproduction in plants. We have been looking at learning outcome B. Understand how plants reproduce asexually. And our learning activity today, the learners had carried out a field study to observe plants, identifying the possible parts that have been or could be used to get new plants of the same kind. The learners report their findings in the table and with the drawings as appropriate. Thank you for participating. Please, if it has been useful, visit me at Mugabi Joshua Biology on YouTube.